Why did Marvel's Avengers die? That is the question of today's video. Well, there's many reasons for it. I'm sure you can already guess some of them because it's been quite a controversial topic for many years now. But I mean, Crystal Dynamics was desperate to keep the player base alive. But after nearly 3 years, they decided to say, you know what, let's just cut our losses. And Marvel's Avengers is shutting down its online service, I think, next month or September? Which means the only thing you can do in Marvel's Avengers is play it single player. I'm pretty sure. It's a bit confusing. That is one of the that is a great word for Marvel's Avengers, actually. Confusing. So let's get started. Let's figure out why Marvel's Avengers died, and you can join me and drop your comments down below as to why you think it died and your specific experience with it. Let's start with the original reveal trailer, which was a bit confusing. In fact, let's call this whole thing confusing marketing. That's number one. Marvel's Avengers was revealed with a 50-second teaser called The Avengers Project. The Avengers Project was purposefully secretive. All it was an announcement that an Avengers game was coming from Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics. Now, my first question when it first got revealed was, why is Crystal Dynamics making an Avengers game? It is so off the mark for what they usually do. Crystal Dynamics was responsible for the reboot of Tomb Raider. The first Tomb Raider from 2013 is actually a really good game. I recommend it to everyone to give it a shot if you like single player experiences. I never played The Rise of Tomb Raider, the sequel, after all the Xbox controversy, since it was going to be exclusive for a year, and then Shadow of the Tomb Raider was taken over by a different studio because Crystal Dynamics was so focused on Marvel's Avengers. But the problem with this reveal trailer is that it revealed almost nothing. Yes, okay, an Avengers game, sick. But we didn't know what it was going to be. Was it going to be a single player experience? Was it going to be a multiplayer experience? Was it going to be co-op? Was it going to be a massively online game? Nothing was revealed from what I can remember. So everyone naturally said, wow, that's a really cool teaser. I mean, we've already got Spider-Man and PS4 coming, so it's got to be connected to that, right? It makes sense. The Avengers films are coming to an epic climax with Avengers Endgame. They'll probably want to take a break. They didn't. So why not invest into gaming? Do the exact same thing they did with the films, with the comics, and do it with gaming. Connect everything. It'll be massive. They can make so much money from it. Just keep everything single player, no microtransactions, and eventually branch out into an Avengers game where everyone can play together with their favorite characters, with everyone being established. That would make more sense. Except that's not what happened. In fact, after this reveal trailer, there was no information for 2 years. The first piece of information and a first trailer we got was 2 years later in 2019 with the A-Day trailer. And it would become infamous over the next year because that was literally all they revealed for the Avengers game until like 2 months from launch. They replayed the same demo over and over again for a year, and they acted like it was marketing the game. But the main problem with that demo was it was kind of misleading. What do I mean by misleading? Because it is the game. Like, you get that in the game. You get that mission. Well, they acted like that mission was representative of the entire game. The entire game. But that just was not the case. Sure, you could argue the single player was very similar to that opening section, but after that, the quality of the single player just drops off. Then they revealed that your main character in an Avengers game was going to be called Kamala Khan. Now, Kamala Khan was already an established character in the comics, but well, I think everyone can agree that she wasn't exactly popular. She wasn't like the mainstream person you want to put in an Avengers game, especially as the lead. Now, there's multiple reasons as to why this annoyed people. One, Kamala Khan isn't very popular, like I just said. I didn't know who that was. I didn't really care. Of course, you had a few YouTubers and commentators not liking it for different reasons other than it just being a character not many people know about, but we're not going to get into that. We all know what I'm talking about. The second reason was because this was advertised as an Avengers game. We want to play as like the big characters, the popular characters. That's the point of making an Avengers game. And while you can do that in the game, Kamala Khan was always at the center of the single player story. Of course, a lot of people judged it too early before even playing it, but most of us were right as it wasn't very good. But right from there, that's when Avengers started having a bit of trouble. You see, marketing is pretty much everything when it comes to releasing anything, you know what I mean? I mean, that seems like a really obvious thing to say, but it's amazing how many products, how many films, etc. just don't market properly when they don't have the brand power that other companies and brands do, you know what I mean? Like Avengers, Avengers, everyone knows Avengers, you know, everyone knows it, so marketing wouldn't be like a big deal, which is what I assume was the thought process over showing the gameplay demo multiple times a year without showing anything else. The next step of the marketing was even worse because they finally admitted that this is going to be a live service game. But they tried to cover it up. They said, this is going to be a single player experience with live service elements. But in reality, the single player experience is quite short. It's not that great. It doesn't really do anything new with the characters. It doesn't make anything interesting or unique that we haven't seen in a game before, especially after playing like games like Marvel Ultimate Alliance that came out in like 2004, 2005. So that was not a very good idea. But then of course they announced there's going to be microtransactions in an Avengers game. Now, microtransactions, it's a tough topic to talk about for many reasons. Sorry about the green screen. It's not a real green screen. I've got an Nvidia GPU. I'm using like a digital green screen, which is why it's so rough. Anyway, I don't really mind microtransactions as long as it's not invasive and not exploitative. You're not changing the game to make it more appealing to buy things like EA games, Ubisoft games. Ubisoft games bloat their games to absolute hell now so that they can sell you time savers. So what they try and get you to do is you buy the game for full price, 60, 70 pound, and then the game is so long and so bloated and honestly quite boring that you feel like you need to buy time savers. I know most people don't do it, but there's a very small percentage of players out there that have a lot of money that are called whales, because that's how these companies make billions of dollars. Whales. They spend loads of money on microtransactions. So it's pretty clear from the get-go that Avengers wasn't exactly being treated correctly, because Avengers is a big IP. This could have been one of the biggest games ever released, but the marketing was so confusing that no one really knew what they were buying, and you're not going to buy something you're not confident in, which is why reviews exist. Now combine that with one gameplay demo and things aren't going to be looking great, and I think that's one of the bigger reasons as to why it didn't really captivate people the way Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics thought it would. Now we're going to go into the reviews. So it comes to launch, the demo's been shown. They showed one more trailer which showed off some of the strike missions, which is the live service stuff, playing as Thor, Iron Man, all that stuff. So the reviews come out, people have played it, and the reviews are not very good. Now, some reviewers did like the game. In fact, you know what, let's stop talking, let's show you. And I quote some of these reviews, okay? So let's go. One review said, and it gave it 3 stars, "This game cannot figure out what the hell it is." Which is exactly what I've been saying about the marketing. There was no clue as to what this game was aiming to be, what it could be. So from that review alone, it's easy to say that the game itself didn't know what it was, so why would the marketing be able to market properly? Because the marketing team clearly didn't even know what it was either, so boom, that's one of your problems. Another review gave it 3.5 stars. Marvel's Avengers has proven to be a pleasant surprise. Even if its live service identity arguably hinders the true potential of its world, story, and characters, the engaging combat and rewarding progression have established a solid foundation for Crystal Dynamics to build upon with new heroes and scenarios in the months and years to come. That is a very fair review, I think. The foundation is strong, but what matters is what they did after. And that brings us onto part 2. You see, there's a couple more bits that I haven't mentioned about the marketing because it's vital for part 2, which is one we're on now. Avengers not only had microtransactions, which involved cosmetics, but Avengers, for whatever reason, decided that the loot system in this game is not going to affect your appearance. So what happens is you get loot and it changes your statistics, but it does not change how you look, which takes away the whole point of looting, you know what I mean? And it's clear and easy to see why, which brings me back to what I said earlier. Avengers was not being treated correctly. I'm going to pull up an article now, which talks about those exact microtransactions. Apparently the microtransactions are completely optional. That is technically true, but they locked all the cool stuff behind the microtransactions. So the stuff you can unlock in-game are nowhere near what you'd really want for an Avengers game. You want to look cool as an Avenger. Not only that, but the outfits they do have, apart from the cool stuff, all look really bad. Of course, the excuse for this was that you're getting free DLC, you're getting free characters. But I'd much rather an option to just buy the characters and get all the outfits with it rather than having to get a battle pass, which is something we're going to talk about now. Every hero in Marvel's Avengers has a paid battle pass. It costs $10 each, every single character. So every character, I'm going to make this clear, Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, Hulk, and Thor, 5 battle passes, costing you $50 to get all the skins and all the cosmetics for every character. Now, there is a slight positive to this. It turns out if you bought one battle pass, which is $10, and you complete the battle pass, you should be able to earn enough currency, in-game currency, to buy the next battle pass. Yes, that is a cool idea. Problem is that the battle pass takes way too long to complete. Now, of course, you've paid for it, so you want a good amount of content, and you do get that. There is something else that is a problem that I'm going to get to in part 3. So, launch happens, as I've already mentioned. Reviews aren't great, the game sells somewhat decently, and everyone quickly realizes that the reviews were right. Sometimes reviews can miss the mark. You know, reviews are just opinions. Sometimes there's a general consensus opinion at first that all connects. They all say the same thing, but it's very different for other people. But here, that was not the case. In fact, most people hated it even more than the critics, which is pretty impressive. Everyone completed the campaign. Well, not everyone. I don't think everyone completed the campaign. I don't think enough people played it enough to do that. But everyone admitted that, you know, it was mediocre. It wasn't terrible, wasn't great. It was just like, oh yeah, that was fine. And then they got into the live service bit, and they quickly realized the entire game really is the same thing over and over again. You walk into an area, you take out 3 objectives, or you take out a bunch of enemies, and that's the mission over. And you're gonna have to do that over and over and over and over again to unlock cosmetics. Problem with that is, if you're unlocking cosmetics, but you're doing the same thing over and over again to unlock the cosmetics, when you finally unlock the cosmetics, you don't want to do the same missions over and over again. It's an L, it's never going to work. That's why games like Destiny 2 make sure that there's a variety of content, variety of missions, locations, interesting designs and all that. Well, they did at first. Apparently it's not doing too well right now. But point is, Destiny 2 did it right for a while. Avengers did not. Avengers, if it wanted to be a live service, and I can guarantee you Crystal Dynamics did not want it to be a live service at first. I guarantee Square Enix bumped in and said, you're going to make a live service game. That's just me speculating, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened. But the point is, if it was built from a live service standpoint straight away, they would have gone past Earth, I think. The best thing you could have done was go to space. Do what Destiny 2 did. Offer different planets. Offer, the planets in the Guardians of the Galaxy film, you know, where they go in the first film to find the Collector, whatever his name is. Make that an explorable planet. Just add more stuff in, more variety, more visual creativity. But they didn't do that. Everything is set on Earth. Everything's set on Earth. It all looks the same. You go to a city, you go to a mountain, it all looks the same. So the point is, it's too repetitive from a gameplay standpoint, and it's definitely too repetitive from a visual standpoint, because you're going to the same areas over and over again. You've just completed the campaign? Yeah, you're going to do all of that again for 20 hours, just with no story, no motivation outside of the story. It doesn't make any sense. So from launch, it was already failing. It was dropping players like crazy. People weren't interested. So it's best to get to part 3 now, which is the future of Marvel's Avengers and where we are right now. Just gotta love a cup of tea, man. I'm gonna do that in every video on this channel, I swear to God. You see, Crystal Dynamics' play with Marvel's Avengers was to release the game at launch with 5 Avengers, okay? And just with a basic amount of content that you'd expect from a live service game. But their plan was to add more content in slowly over time. As always, that's usually what gets said, but it never really happens. Point is, Marvel's Avengers was planning to release tons of free content in exchange for the microtransactions they added in. Oh yeah, you're halfway through this video, aren't you? This is a good time to say, like the video if you're enjoying it. If you're not enjoying it, dislike it, no problem. And so stick with the sticky man, subscribe, stick with the sticky man. That's my tagline now. Join us. We all know why they did that. It's because microtransactions are far easier to sell. They're far easier to sell. They're smaller in price usually. Some of the skins cost like 20 quid in some games. It's just ridiculous, but they're just easier to sell. It's easier to convince people to buy things that are a $5 rather than something that's 30 quid. You know what I mean? It's easier, it's cheaper. So that's what they wanted to do. So they promised additional content. The additional content they did eventually release was characters like Hawkeye. Oh, it sucks to be Jeremy Renner, doesn't it, man? Hope he's doing all right. But they also released characters like Black Panther, which actually was my favorite addition because Black Panther was actually kind of fun. They also released Winter Soldier for some reason, whatever. And they also released Kate Bishop. So they released Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, basically two same characters, which, you know, just goes to show how things were going for the additional content of Marvel's Avengers. But the biggest controversy, and it was really annoying for PC players and Xbox players, I totally get it, but I also have a PlayStation, that Spider-Man became a exclusive to PlayStation. I think that was the final draw for Xbox and PC players if they were still playing. With that going to PS4, PS5 only, Spider-Man is one of the most popular characters to ever exist. So doing that was really stupid, I think. Sony obviously, you know, they paid a lot of money for it. I mean, they own the rights to Spider-Man, so who can tell them otherwise? But it also wasn't very good. The Spider-Man content, oh my God, the character, the way it played, it sucked. The reveal trailer sucked. The costumes sucked. It just wasn't great. Of course, the only character I think could have saved Avengers was Black Panther, because what they did was basically add Wakanda in. Wakanda, I believe, is really fucking cool. I really like Wakanda. I like the idea of it. And luckily, well, not luckily because EA's making it, but EA have just got access to Black Panther. They're making a fully single-player open world game in Wakanda, I believe, which is going to be really awesome. But the problem with Avengers is that the DLC didn't make it an open space. You play Black Panther's story, which is like an hour or two. It's an hour or two long. And you go through the forests of Wakanda. You can't even go into Wakanda apart from the hub area. How dumb can you get? Oh, not to make Wakanda playable was stupid. It was stupid. And that was the beginning of the end for Marvel's Avengers. Crystal Dynamics was banking a lot on Black Panther being successful, Spider-Man being successful, all the additional content being successful, but nothing was really working. And eventually, when you start bleeding the player base, you start bleeding money. Not because people aren't buying the game anymore, but the people that already bought the game aren't buying microtransactions, therefore making it less profitable over time. And of course, once your player base dwindles so much, the only people that are still going to be playing are the people that have already bought all the microtransactions. So what can you do? You can either just say, cut it, let's go, let's move on. Or you can carry on releasing tidbits of content that's really shit, really easy to make, very cheap, and hope these morons keep buying it, which they did. But if you did buy it, I'm not calling you a moron. I am calling you a moron, actually. That's contradictory. You are a bit of a moron for buying it, but hey, if you got the money, you do what you want. I wish I fucking did. So here we are today. There's no additional content coming to Avengers. The online is slowly being turned off, basically. They're just going to switch it off just like they did with the old servers for other games, like Crysis, which is another complete other topic about game longevity, keeping it alive, piracy, emulation. Subscribe if you want to see that, by the way. Sticky Man wants to talk about emulation. Emulation is really cool, and I want to make a video on it, so subscribe for it, please. Show me there's some interest for it. But for a game like Avengers, you've still got the single player content, but once you've played it once, not really worth playing again, especially when it's that mediocre, and you've got plenty of other single player games like Spider-Man PS4, Miles Morales, Uncharted games, all that stuff, everything that gives you a little bit of a power fantasy. That's so much better than Avengers. Why would you keep playing Avengers? It's just what it is. So yeah, there's not a really good conclusion, I can't lie to you, but the conclusion, the Avengers game itself was not a good conclusion. They just announced out of the blue, yeah, we're done. So that's the way I'm going to do this video. We're just done. It's dead. It died. And that is the reason why I believe I've gone through the whole launch, from reveal to launch to updates to now. I believe that was a good way to do it. But let me know what you think. Are you happy Avengers died because it wasn't really that good? Are you upset that it died because you wanted it to be really good but it just wasn't? Are you that bothered by microtransactions? Were you bothered by the gameplay systems? Let me know down below. And maybe in a year or two we'll see another Avengers game announced from a different studio, from a different publisher, and maybe we can finally get that Avengers game we've always wanted. Or you can just go play Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I mean, those games are pretty good too. But yeah, thank you for watching, really appreciate it. Smash that like button if you enjoyed this video, if you got to the end, and subscribe to stick with the Sticky Man.